Right now, as you are watching this video, millions of people are working harder than ever before, yet somehow they are falling further behind financially. And according to Robert Kiyosaki, the man who wrote one of the best-selling financial books of all time, this is not an accident. It is by design. In fact, Kiyosaki recently warned that an entire generation could end up homeless, not because they are lazy, but because they are following a playbook that was designed to keep them poor. And the most terrifying part? Most people have no idea they are trapped in this system. Stay with me, because what I am about to share could completely change how you think about money, work, and building wealth. Robert Kiyosaki is the author of Rich Dad, Poor Dad, a book that has sold over 40 million copies worldwide. But he is not just another financial guru trying to sell you a course. For decades, he has been warning about fundamental flaws in how we are taught to think about money, and his warnings are becoming more relevant than ever. Recent data shows that 87% of Americans feel they were not properly prepared by their education system to handle money. Meanwhile, only 23% of low-income adults are financially literate, compared to 56% of high-income individuals. But here is what Kiyosaki says most people miss. The gap between rich and poor is not about how hard you work or how smart you are. It is about something much more fundamental. And once you understand this, you cannot unsee it. Let us break down exactly what Kiyosaki has been warning us about. Kiyosaki's first major warning centers on what he calls the biggest financial lie most people believe, that working harder for money is the path to wealth. Here is his exact quote: "The poor and the middle class work for money. The rich have money work for them." Now you might think, well, of course I have to work for money. How else do I earn a living? And that is exactly the problem. That is the conditioning talking. Let me explain with a real example. Imagine a doctor making $400,000 a year. Sounds rich, right? But if that doctor is spending $380,000 annually, they have only $20,000 in actual financial freedom. Now compare that to someone earning $80,000 who owns rental properties generating $30,000 in passive cash flow. Who has more financial freedom? The person making less money. Because here is the key distinction Kiyosaki makes. The doctor must keep working to maintain their lifestyle. The rental property owner has choices. They could stop working tomorrow and still have $30,000 coming in. This is what Kiyosaki means when he says, this is not about how much money you make, but how much you keep and how much you get back in your pocket each month. Here is where it gets controversial. Kiyosaki argues that our education system is deliberately designed to create employees, not wealth builders. He says one of the reasons the rich get richer, the poor get poorer, and the middle class struggles in debt is because the subject of money is taught at home, not at school. Think about it. We spend 12 years in school, sometimes more, learning algebra, history, and science, all valuable subjects. But how many of us graduated high school knowing how to read a financial statement, how to invest, how to use debt strategically, how tax laws work? The data backs this up. Recent research shows that only 19% of US adults took a personal finance class in high school. And the result? Nearly 1 in 3 US adults feel stressed about money often. This is not a bug in the system. According to Kiyosaki, it is a feature. The system needs employees, not entrepreneurs. It needs people who will work for 40 years, pay taxes, and consume. It does not want people who understand how to build wealth. Now here's where Kiyosaki drops one of his most controversial bombs, and it challenges everything most people believe about wealth building. He has a simple definition. An asset puts money in my pocket. A liability takes money out of my pocket. Using this framework, let me ask you something. Is your house an asset or a liability? Most people would say asset. After all, it's probably your biggest investment, right? Wrong. According to Kiyosaki, your primary residence is a liability. Why? Because every month it takes money out of your pocket. Mortgage payment, property taxes, insurance, maintenance, utilities. Money flowing out, not in. Now, a rental property you own is an asset. It generates monthly cash flow. Money flows in. This simple reframing changes everything. It explains why middle-class families often struggle despite owning valuable homes. Kiyosaki also warns about what he calls the luxury trap. He says rich people buy luxuries last, while the poor and middle class tend to buy luxuries first. Think about someone who gets a raise. What is the first thing many people do? They upgrade their car. They buy a nicer watch. They move to a bigger apartment. Each of these decisions creates new liabilities, new monthly payments, new insurance costs, more money flowing out. Meanwhile, wealthy people do the opposite. They buy cash-flowing assets first. Then, once those assets generate enough passive income, they buy luxuries with that cash flow. As Kiyosaki puts it, a true luxury is a reward for investing in and developing a real asset. This is why you will often see millionaires driving old cars while living in modest homes, while people making $60,000 a year are driving vehicles worth $50,000 that they cannot actually afford. The middle class focuses on looking wealthy. The wealthy focus on being wealthy. There is a huge difference. Now, this next warning from Kiyosaki is probably the most dangerous to misunderstand, so pay close attention. Most financial advice tells you to avoid debt at all costs. Pay off your mortgage, cut up your credit cards. Debt is the enemy. But Kiyosaki says the opposite. The only reason I've made millions and millions of dollars is I use debt to buy real estate. Wait, what? Here is the critical distinction. There is good debt and bad debt. Bad debt means using credit cards to buy clothes, furniture, and vacations. It means using a car loan to buy a vehicle that loses value. It means using student loans without a clear return on investment strategy. This kind of debt buys liabilities. Good debt means borrowing money to buy cash-flowing assets. If you borrow $500,000 at 5% interest to buy a rental property that generates an 8% return, that debt is actually accelerating your wealth building. The middle class uses debt to buy liabilities. The wealthy use debt to buy assets. Kiyosaki has recently become even more vocal about debt, specifically government debt and money printing. He has warned that when you print fake money, you make life harder on people. The average person sees the price of chicken, eggs, and yogurt go up, and inflation wipes them out. His point is simple. When governments print money, asset owners benefit because asset prices rise, while wage earners suffer because their paychecks do not keep up with rising prices. Someone who owns real estate sees their property value increase. Someone working for a paycheck sees their purchasing power decrease. This is why Kiyosaki urgently warns that people dependent on paychecks are in serious danger, especially baby boomers approaching retirement. He has even predicted that boomers are going to be homeless all over the place because they do not have enough savings to withstand inflation. That is not fear-mongering, that is mathematics. So if the traditional path of work hard, save money, retire does not work, what does? Kiyosaki's alternative centers on one concept. Real freedom comes from cash flow, not a paycheck. Cash flow means money coming in from assets you own, rental properties, businesses, dividend-paying stocks, royalties, income that continues whether you work or not. Here is the framework Kiyosaki teaches. There are 4 types of people in the financial world. First, employees. They trade time for money. When they stop working, income stops. Second, self-employed. They own their job. They are still trading time for money, but they have more control. Third, business owners. They own a system that generates income without their constant presence. Fourth, investors. Their money works for them 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Most people are stuck in quadrants 1 and 2. They are on a hamster wheel. The wealthy operate in quadrants 3 and 4. Kiyosaki also emphasizes that the tax code is written to favor business owners and investors, not employees. Employees earn money, pay taxes, then spend what is left. Business owners earn money, spend on business expenses, then pay taxes on what is left. That is a massive difference. Business owners can write off education, travel, home offices, meals, vehicles, and more. Employees cannot. This is why 2 people earning the same gross income can end up with vastly different take-home amounts. And according to Kiyosaki, this is not a loophole. It is intentional. The government wants people to invest, create businesses, and build housing, so they reward those activities through the tax code. But they do not teach this in school. Why? Because, as Kiyosaki says, the middle class is taught to be good employees, not wealth builders. Alright, so you understand the trap. You see the system. Now what? Here is what Kiyosaki recommends and what the data supports. First, get real financial education, not from TikTok and not from random YouTube comments. Learn how to read financial statements, the difference between assets and liabilities, how debt can be used strategically, how taxes work for different income types, and basic investing principles. Studies show that financial literacy reduces poverty. In fact, Households that receive financial education saw savings rates increase by 77% and budgeting skills improve by 46%. Second, start building assets, not income. Stop chasing the next raise and start building your first asset. It does not matter how small. Kiyosaki says even if you can only afford $50 worth of silver or a $100 share of a dividend-paying stock, start there. The goal is to break the psychological barrier and begin thinking like an asset owner, not just an employee. Third, separate from the herd. This is crucial. Most people around you will think you are crazy for not following the traditional path. They will question why you are not buying a big house or a new car when you get a raise. Remember, if you do what everyone else does, you will get what everyone else gets. And what everyone else gets is financial stress, debt, and dependency on a paycheck. Fourth, learn the language of money. The wealthy speak a different language. They talk about cash flow, equity, return on investment, capital gains, tax strategies, and passive income. Start learning this language. Read books, take courses, find mentors who actually build wealth, not just sell courses about building wealth. And here is why this matters more now than ever. The gap between the wealthy and everyone else is widening at an unprecedented rate. Recent data shows that only 27% of adults globally are financially literate. Meanwhile, household debt in the United States has reached $17.3 trillion. 41% of Americans would struggle to cover a $1,000 emergency expense. Nearly half of all Americans live paycheck to paycheck. This is not sustainable. And Kiyosaki's warnings about potential homelessness and economic disaster are not exaggerations when you look at these numbers. The good news is you now know what the trap is. You understand the game, and understanding the rules is the first step to winning. So let me leave you with this. Robert Kiyosaki's core message is not that you should quit your job or that everyone should be an entrepreneur. His message is simpler and more profound. The system you were raised in was designed to create consumers and employees, not wealth builders. But you do not have to stay in that system. The choice is yours. You can keep doing what everyone else does, work harder for money, save a little, hope it is enough, and pray inflation does not destroy your purchasing power. Or you can learn what the wealthy already know, that money should work for you, not the other way around. The path is not easy. It requires education, discipline, and often going against everything your friends and family believe about money. But the alternative, staying in the trap, working until you are 70, hoping Social Security and a 401k will be enough, that is actually the risky path. As Kiyosaki says, the poor and middle class work for money, the rich have money work for them. The question is, which side of that equation do you want to be on? If this video opened your eyes to how the financial system really works, do me a favor, share it with someone who needs to hear this message. Financial education is the one thing schools will not teach, and it could change everything. Thanks for watching. I will see you in the next one. Before you go, hit that subscribe button if you want more no-nonsense financial education. Drop a comment and let me know. What was the biggest financial lie you were taught growing up? And if you are ready to go deeper, check out the video linked in the description about building your first income stream. See you next time.